Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Thank You for Your Reply podcast. Today, we're talking to Zander Kempf, the founder and CEO of Clear Summit Investments, all the way over in Honolulu. Thanks for taking the time today.
Awesome. Thanks, Rich. Really appreciate it.
So to start off, can you just introduce yourself and a little bit of your background and when you started starting up Clear Summit Investments?
For sure. Yeah, so my name's Zander Kempf. I started the company Clear Summit about 8 years ago now. I originally started it wanting to create a business that created a lifestyle of freedom. I've always loved travel and adventure and outdoors, and I saw real estate as a tool to help get you there. It has so much power to it between cash flow and the tax benefits and the long-term growth and the ability to use leverage. So I named the company Clear Summit because I had a goal of hiking the highest mountain on every continent. And that was, aspirational to me, and something is like, okay, I want to build a business that allows me the freedom in life to go do that and have that sort of lifestyle. 8 years ago, I was active duty military as a paratrooper down in North Carolina, and started investing in real estate. I bought my first single family house. It was a 45K turnkey house with a $9,000 down payment, and I caught the bug. I saw the power that real estate had, and decided to start doing every deal larger than the last. So I grew up through flipping, then into multifamily renos, where we'd buy severely distressed properties and put in property management, do studs out renovations, then do a refinance, pull the cash out, and then hold that property for the long term for cash flow. So I did that over and over and over, and built up a sizable portfolio, about 23 multifamily buildings. And the strategy started to tap out. I wanted to do larger deals as well because, from my perspective, doing a 2 unit or a 20 unit is relatively similar amount of work, but you get 10 times higher return. So I was always looking to do a larger deal size rather than a deal volume. So I moved into developing. It's kind of the same time as I got out of the military. I went to work for a large developer out in Honolulu. So we were doing everything from high-rise development, hotels, industrial subdivisions. I did a cemetery project, a whole bunch of really interesting and unique projects, but it taught me how to approach development and look at it from the perspective that some of these much bigger players did. So on my own, I continued developing. We converted some old industrial buildings into affordable housing. I did industrial projects, just started doing land development. And it's about this time during COVID that the numbers in the multifamily world, a lot of these projects just stopped making sense. The interest rates were high, the prices were extremely high, and the profits just weren't there. So, I started looking around and see, okay, where do we have an edge? Where can we have that kind of unfair advantage? Some sort of beta where we can go exponential rather than just keep going linearly and trying to eke out the margins. And we came across the RV and glamping space, which was relatively untapped. It's still, 88% of RV parks are still owned by small mom and pops. And it presents this whole opportunity to come in and roll up these properties that have been built up, that have cash flow, but they're at relatively low prices. And they have really easy value add pieces, like maybe they don't have a website, or they don't use dynamic pricing, or they're not listed on Airbnb, or maybe it's on 30 acres of land and they only have 10 cabins and you can add, 50 more. So some really clear value add pieces is what we look for these properties. And that's what we've been finding and buying quite a few of now. So we both develop and we buy these value add deals. We only go to major destination areas. So we're buying near national parks, major lakes and rivers, large tourist towns, that sort of thing. And we find these beautiful properties that are, get people outside. And kind of was coincidentally or subconsciously, but the whole reason I started Clear Summit was, again, to have that lifestyle of freedom and outdoors and travel. And now I'm feel extremely fortunate to be able to be in buying and developing these properties that give other people that experience as well, on top of creating the passive income to support the lifestyle for us and our investors. So
Cool.
right now we're working on something called the Real Freedom Fund. It's a roll-up of 15 of these RV and glamping resorts, all in beautiful locations, mostly around the Rockies. And that's our company's full focus.
Doing it from Hawaii.
So most of our team
Good place to do
is
it.
yeah, I do get on a plane quite a bit. But
Yeah.
Eric,
from
my
one
main
again.
business partner, he's down in northern Arizona. He manages our construction crews, and so he's our more boots on the ground. We always have on-site staff at all the properties and local regional managers and all that sort of thing.
Cool. I remember one time driving across the country from one duty station to another, where I was staying at various campgrounds, and there was one, like, it was a KOA, but it was like super nicely, whoever owned that particular location did a really good job of it. And part of me was like, oh, that wouldn't be such a bad gig to do, but I haven't done that yet. Wanted to ask, as a fellow veteran, I'm curious about how your military service in the U.S. Army influenced your path to the RV and glamping resort investments,
Sure.
and if you saw any parallels between your military strategic planning and your current approach to achieving your four freedoms: time, money, location, and purpose.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's a huge amount of overlap. One of the big ones that stands out to me on a daily basis is the ability to deal with unknowns and stress and complex problems. Obviously, in the military, every day you're doing something completely brand new, something that's never been done before. And there's a big parallel to that in entrepreneurship and running your own business. If you're encountering problems that you've never seen before, or it might be completely new and unique, and needing to navigate that path and start to have that tenacity to not be overwhelmed with stress, to also be able to sort through it, like, okay, I need to pick the things that matter to focus on, and if there's 100 things in front of me, maybe only 5 of them will really move the needle, and the other 95 we can just simply ignore or let go. So that's definitely a big one. But the other really large one that stands out to me is the leadership side. I mean, the military is, I think, one of the best leadership training organizations in the world, and more than I've ever seen in any, like, in the private sector, teaches you how to lead, not just to manage. And managing is just delegating tasks. Leading is motivating and inspiring people, making sure people feel taken care of, they buy into the vision, they have a purpose. And I've been really fortunate to have an amazing team of A players join my company as partners or as employees, and using a lot of those skills that I have from the military to take care of these people, to make sure that they feel motivated, they know their value, they know what their purpose is, and that all of us are on the same page, and then we can go win as a team. Oftentimes people will stop me because I'm talking about something we're doing, and I'll say we, and they're like, "Well, who's we?" I'm like, "Isn't it your company?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it's we win as a team. It's all team mentality." And that's directly from the military. There's no I. Everything's done as a group.
Yeah, like that. That even so, I was a chef in the military, culinary specialist, and yeah, it's the same thing. You're not just telling people recipes or how to cook something. You have to inspire them to want to be there at 5 in the morning
And
to
know that
cook
there's a
breakfast.
greater purpose to what they're doing, and it all plays together.
Yeah, it's not just breakfast. It's the food is the morale of the crew and all that.
Absolutely.
So your Clear Summit is very successful in what you're doing, and on your website there were some stats on there that you've developed 3.3 billion in real estate with 24.2% annual return. I was wondering which is no small feat. Um, Wondering which technology systems have been most crucial in scaling to that level, and how you measure the impact.
For sure. And I will say that that number is the collective experience of our partners. It's not necessarily what we've done.
Okay.
So, but some of our partners have, longer 20, 30-year track records that have done really, really significant levels of development. And that's the experience that they bring into the team.
Mhm.
But for tech that we use, we're not as tech driven as a company that does a high volume, because I think volume is really something where tech comes into play. Like, I know, like, my former, or I have some partners, or my advisor has built like a flipping company, or they flipped 1,000 homes in a year, something like that. Yes, you need all sorts of custom software and deal sourcing and project management, because I built our company really intentionally to not have volume and be able to scale just by deal size. We can have a relatively small number of people and do really, really large projects. So we actually keep things relatively simple, although I love technology and automation and anything that we could put in there. But for business systems, we use Slack for communication. We use ClickUp for project management. It's similar to Asana or Monday, all the Google Drive suites. And then recently ChatGPT has been, and a couple other AI tools have been just mind-blowingly incredible. And I really think whoever's truly masters the use of ChatGPT is going to have the most success in the coming years. So that's one that we put a big focus on. And every day we find new ways to implement that into our operations.
Yeah, it's been quite. I always feel like 2025 was like turning a corner, and where up until then, like AI was kind of like like a fun, cool tool. But it seems like the momentum has just really picked up on it. Uh,
Absolutely.
Clear Summit positions itself uniquely in the RV and glamping resort space near national parks. How do you identify and validate the specific niche as your value proposition? Like, how do you evaluate sites and
Yeah,
go
absolutely.
forward with it?
So our primary is being near a major destination area. These properties are usually in relatively rural areas. We don't do like downtown main metro type properties. We're all near the Grand Canyon. We're near Rocky Mountain National Forest. We're near a hot spring, something major and significant like that. And we do that to give us the market stability of knowing, okay, Grand Canyon's one of the seven wonders of the world. We know that's never going anywhere. There's 6 million people a year that visit. That's very likely going to continue for the long terms, at least to the level where we're comfortable investing and banking on that. So that gives us our market stability. We look for growth. So, the majority, about 80 or 90% of people that visit these resort type properties, RV parks or glamping resorts, are traveling within a 250-mile radius, and it makes sense. You go on a weekend trip or a week trip with your family or your significant other. You're going to do a couple to maybe a few hour drive. So we look for major metros within that 250-mile radius. And one of the main reasons why we picked the Rocky Mountain region is we have Denver, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas, and Phoenix, which are all rapidly expanding metros. And the 250-mile bubbles around all four of those overlap to cover most of that region. So all through there, we see really strong growing customer base. And then we also look at the National Park Service publishes the visitation rates of the national parks. So we scraped all that data, and we can also look at, hey, which parks have growing visitation rates and which ones are stagnant. Some of them are capped. The Park Service decided to cap the number of visitors allowed to visit certain parks like Zion. So that's likely one that we won't go by near. Because we know, okay, they're not going to grow 10% visitation next year because they're fixed. So that's the macro. On the more deal specific side, we look for properties that are between $4 and $10 million. So that's mid size in the space. We don't go smaller than that because we want the economies of scale to be able to have on-site management, have some of our tech systems be in place. And we don't go too much bigger because that's when the cap rates start to get compressed. There's more competition from the bigger buyers. But in this nice middle ground, we're able to find really fantastic deals with relatively low competition, and it really makes the numbers work. And then the other piece that we look for these properties is those easy value add pieces, like I mentioned earlier. So that's something where their marketing systems are not at the level that a professional marketing company can do. Their amenities aren't updated. Maybe we always do health and wellness amenity package. So we'll bring in hot tub sauna, cold plunge, co-working, outdoor fire pits, communal kitchens, dog runs, all those things. They're relatively low cost to do, but they create a huge amount of value. And they really make a property stand out on something like Airbnb. So if we have a property that we know we can put in our marketing system, revenues go up. We can put in our health and wellness amenity package. Now it stands out. And then the third real ideal is undeveloped land where we can add RV pads, add tent sites, add glamping units, and add the opportunity for additional revenue streams. Those are all huge check boxes for us.
Do most of your acquisitions, they already existing camping sites already, or is there any times where you just buy a piece of land and develop it for that purpose?
Yeah, so we do both. We are a development firm. We have in-house construction. We're about 2 weeks away, or maybe by the time this airs, it'll be open from a brand new development called the Outpost. It's 20 minutes from the Grand Canyon. It's Airstream glamping, resort that we built, ground up, and will continue to do so. Our main fund right now, though, the Real Freedom Fund, is buying existing properties. That's ones that have a long operating history. They're cash flowing now, and we just know that we can come in with our marketing and operation systems and operate them more profitably.
So, managing properties near national parks probably presents some unique challenges. What's been your biggest operational hurdle, and what systematic approach have you implemented to overcome it?
Yeah, so it's I guess first talking about how we manage. So we partnered with two different, and what we found was the best property managers in the space. They operate nationwide. They've got a 20-year track record, a staff of one has 30, the other has 90 employees, and they manage one's 35 resorts, and the other has about 70 resorts. Uh, so wide breadth of experience, huge amount of systems and tech and everything to build in there. I would say one of the bigger challenges is labor. It's across a lot of industries right now, but the labor challenge, and something kind of unique to this type of property, how we get around that is there's a setup called work campers where people will go, might be younger couple looking to travel or an older retired couple, but there's people that will go and stay on your property. You let them stay for free. In exchange, they work for a certain number of hours a week, or maybe you give them a small salary. But it's a really interesting way. So it's kind of like a work trade. And for the individuals, it's a really cool opportunity because, oh, you can go live by the Grand Canyon, you can go live in the Rocky Mountains for 3, 6, 9 months, and have this cool experience in nature. And you just spend some time, managing the property, getting it clean, maybe helping guests out, and that sort of thing. And then on our end, we get a relatively low cost labor and some on-site management that really cares about the property, and they're there. We give them their responsibilities. They get that pride of ownership. It's a really neat setup.
Oh, that's cool. It reminds me of I used to be signed up to the Caretaker's Gazette. I don't know if you heard that. It used to be just like a newsletter that would come physically, little maybe 10, 15 pages on newsprint, would come in the mail. And it's just it was ads for basically uh, housekeeping or house caretaking, on-site kind of help like that, where you would just basically be sign up for a work vacation. So I was looking on your website. I don't, I'm not an investor with Clear Summit, so can't really see it. But seems like you should have an investor portal in there. I was wondering how central that is to operations for bringing people in and kind of managing the investments.
Yeah, I mean that one's massively beneficial. It's a fully automated portal, so you jump in. We have everything related to the Real Freedom Fund in there. So there's a video walkthrough of me going through our presentation deck. There's the deck there that you can download. There's links to our deal rooms where you can go and look at all of the individual properties that we are buying or may have under contract. There's the legal docs you can go over, and then when investors are ready to move forward, you can go through the whole onboarding process of e-sign the documents, fund the investment, you do ACH transfer all within the portal, and then that's a dashboard that investors can jump on and use and get their monthly distributions. We pay out on the first of every month. We do quarterly reports, and then the annual tax docs. So all of that's really nicely managed within that portal there.
What platform does it use?
That's Invest Next.
Okay, the tech nerd part of it. There's 71 plus investors on your platform? Or is there more now? That's what I
Yeah,
saw on
we're
the
probably
website.
at 75, maybe coming up on 80 here.
So how are you balancing automation and technology with maintaining personal relationships in that investment community?
Absolutely. It's a great question because it is such an important relationship to have. We don't take any investment lightly. We understand when people put money in, it's their retirement funds, it's their hard-earned lifetime savings. I've got a lot of my friends and family, my parents have all invested with us. So I am more careful with investor money by a factor of 100 than I am with my own. Uh, but as far as the systems or how we maintain relationships with, as we scale up investors, is we built out an investor relations team. So, as I said earlier, I was fortunate enough to have a whole team of really high quality, amazing people join us. And some of those are Alex, our CMO, Heather's our head of investor relations, and then we also have a handful of other investor relations reps. So everybody that contacts our company or comes in can jump on the phone with some really fantastic smart people, and they can walk them through the whole process, answer any questions about the legal side, our operations, our properties, and then I'm also happy to jump on a call with investors as well, and very often do, just to make sure that we're a good fit for each other, because we have some criteria. If, we have a certain hold period, and we can only work with accredited investors and a few other pieces there. So we make sure that we're a good fit before we all move forward.
Yeah, I'll put in the show notes as well a link to uh, that pitch deck and everything, in case anyone listening to this gets a hankering for it. What's the minimum investment?
Yeah, so we
Would
have
you
two
say?
different tiers. There's a preferred equity class that's 10% preferred return, and both of these options are for our Real Freedom Fund. So that's owning all 15 resorts that we're rolling up. So you get diversified across all of them.
Oh, cool.
But the preferred equity class is a 10% preferred return, and that gets paid out monthly. We'll do a cash out refinance by year 5, and that returns all of your invested capital. And then there's the common equity that gets an 8% preferred return. And then depending on how much you invest, it's between a 60 and a 70% profit share. That one is a little unique. It's an infinite hold model. So we do a cash out, we do monthly distributions. We do a cash out refinance by year 5. So you get all your money back by year 5, but then you keep your same profit split and you keep getting monthly distributions in perpetuity or until we ever sell the portfolio. And then in that case, you get a share of the sale as well. But that has the preferred equity is a 50,000 minimum. The common equity is 100,000 minimum.
As you were explaining, that made me think a little bit about the Portugal has the golden visa, or they still have and there's a $500,000 investment to get citizenship, basically. And but it used to be in property, but now they did away with that. Now it's only some other kind of financial funds that you can invest in, but with the goal of becoming a Portuguese citizen. So maybe they can take some notes from you guys and bring that back, or you guys can start one over there. Start a
Yeah, there
glamping.
you go. So have to go international.
Yeah. There's good surfing in Portugal, as you probably know.
Very true.
So about your expansion framework, what's your evaluation process for new resort acquisition? I guess you already kind of talked about this. How do you how do you assess like the potential for technological integration? You talked a little bit about like improving marketing. Do you have any thoughts on where that's going, technology
Yeah, I
wise?
mean, it's all on the marketing side in that regard. So, some of the properties that we look at, like I said, they're owned by mom and pops. So maybe someone's owned it for the last 20, 30 years, and they've been able to operate it as they have been. And because they bought it so long ago, they have it paid off and they make enough cash flow from it. So there's been no need to really push the needle or do any sort of marketing. But nowadays, with the tools that are out there, we utilize a really wide variety of them, and it really boosts revenue in a significant way. So customers really care about that clean booking experience. So right off the bat, you go on the website, it should be really clear as to what the property is, clear picture of like amazing pictures and videos, really high quality. Be able to understand not just the property, but because we're doing hospitality, people are coming here on vacation. Also, what are the local attractions, and then linking to local attractions. Okay, if you're going to come visit the property and stay for the night, well, okay, do you also want to do a helicopter tour or a whitewater rafting tour or a wine tasting, whatever's local? And obviously we don't provide those, but by partnering with local operators, we can resell their tours on our website, or after somebody books, we can then market those activities to them, and that's another revenue generator for us. So that's a way we can add revenue streams. There's some booking platforms that will integrate there and make it easy to be an affiliate, or to partner with these guys. A big one is dynamic pricing. So we use a couple different dynamic pricing tools, but they will update the pricing that the properties are listed at sometimes multiple times a day. So if you're booking in the
like
morning
Uber?
versus the afternoon, if you book on a Tuesday versus a Sunday, or as you get closer or farther away, and that can usually increase revenue by on the order of maybe 10 or 20%, which is very, very significant.
Oh, yeah. And then, so do you have like frameworks that you go in and sort of install in terms of, okay, now the website is going to look like this, the branding is going to be like this, or is it, or do you kind of leave that as a case by case basis?
We tailor it to the individual property, and that's because every property is so different. A desert property versus a wooded mountain property versus something that's lakeside. They all have really different aesthetics and different feels. So the underlying is there's some similarities in the terms of the health and wellness focus, the clean, the modern, that really high quality is there throughout. But we do tailor it specific to each property just to make sure we really emphasize, because what we're selling is not necessarily the property's brand, but it's the nature around it. It's You're selling the fire under the stars. You're selling the hot spring resort. You're selling the Grand Canyon. So that's the real emphasis.
So considering the outdoor hospitality market's evolution, what specific data points influence your acquisition and development decisions?
Yeah, so we've seen a massive explosion of interest in this space. The number of glamping properties is on an exponential growth curve right now, and that gets validated by some of the bigger groups, Marriott being one. So there was a company called Postcard Cabins that built about 1,400 tiny homes across the country, and Marriott just did that acquisition. They bought that whole
Oh, wow.
thing and are building out an outdoor hospitality arm under Marriott. So seeing some of the bigger guys move into this space really validates the strategy, and just means giving us the incentive to double down even more so, because like I said, it's at least in the RV park side, it's 88% owned by mom and pops. That number is starting it was already been compressed over the last several years, and that number is going to get pushed down much more rapidly here as more interest comes into the space. We know the demographics of society now want the experience, they want nature, and keeping politics out of it, but looking at what's happening in the world right now, that international travel for a lot of people is getting less attractive, and more Americans are wanting to travel domestically, and that means traveling to the national parks, traveling to these outdoor hospitality type resorts. So, and a lot of the data points, point to that. You also have the remote work lifestyle of a lot of people doing remote work are full time in a van or an RV, and then think of the amazing thing that Starlink has given us of being able to have high speed Wi-Fi anywhere in the world, even where there's not cell service. Okay, now you have these people that can go live in a van, work remotely, be fully connected to the internet, be productive, and can do it for a longer period. Now they can go bounce between these type of properties. So we see that the customer base is growing really significantly. There's a huge amount of interest in the space of customers, and then also from the institutional side, more and more large groups pouring in here. And all of those things tell us that we're in the right spot, and we just want to grab as much market share as we possibly can right now, get good quality properties that we can hold that are cash flowing, and then we can ride that wave up as this whole space becomes more and more competitive.
How does entities like KOA, which is like, I mean, it's not Marriott, but does KOA, do they hold tightly on the reins of their like franchise locations, or are those, how would they fit into this puzzle? Any thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, so they're well positioned. They have a particular brand and quality that's they've done really well. I think they're up around 600 locations around the country, and they're all franchises, or most of them are. So we've looked at some KOA properties. We've had some under contract that we ended up backing out during due diligence. So that might be something that we do down the road. Generally, we look for properties that maybe are a little bit more upscale. KOAs are typically more middle of the road type stays. And with the amenity package that we like to bring in, the aesthetics that we bring in, and some of these like really unique glamping type units, we like to go a little bit more upscale than the typical KOA. Some of our glamping units are things like anything from a tiny home, a yurt, a mirror cabin. We've seen geodesic domes and covered wagons and all kinds of just really, really cool and interesting stays that really pop out on Airbnb. So those aren't quite as possible in the KOA because they put a pretty strict guidelines to keep their brand, but it's an option.
Yeah. I was just kind of curious about that because they're more like, I don't know, simple or 70s style or something. uh, so our last question here. So based on your journey from traditional real estate to specialized resort investments, what advice would you give about balancing immediate yields with long-term asset appreciation? You've mentioned a couple of times holding property, which some people don't approach it that way.
I mean, honestly, there's 1,000 different ways to make money in real estate, and it depends on what your own investment objectives are, and also the lifestyle focus that you want. Um, you can go on any level of extreme. Of the easiest thing is to buy a property that's, buy a triple net lease property that's cash flowing, give it to a property manager, and never touch it. Up to the extreme end of go manage a construction project, or go run a house flipping company where you're doing a huge volume and a huge amount of deals, and that will likely make more money. But now you're putting time, effort, and complexity and risk involved. So I don't think there's necessarily a blanket answer, and I can just talk to myself. And for what I've seen in all of my experience of doing my own deals, and then learning about how other people have, the most wealth that I see created in real estate is from holding real estate over the long term. So that is why we built the Real Freedom Fund. It is an infinite hold model. We can pull the cash flow out, so we're not asking investors to leave their money in forever. You can get it back out, but we plan to hold those properties forever, knowing that 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, they'll be worth multiples more than they're worth now. And we can just continue riding that growth for the long term.
One bonus question I just want to try to give you is if you could think about a mistake you made early in your career that you learned a big lesson from, and that is still kind of has gotten you to where you are now.
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably the biggest one. I'll just take it as a lesson learned because I don't do life with any sort of regrets or anything. Everything's just a learning experience and it makes you who you are now. But one of the biggest things I've learned is just the need for focus, the benefit for focus. We call it the entrepreneur's curse of once you start to see opportunity out there, you start to find opportunity in everything, all every area is shiny objects, and I could go make money doing that, or I could do that better. And I think the best thing that anybody can do for themselves is pick a single thing and focus on it. Become better at that thing than anybody else. And if you're putting your full heart and soul and all of your effort into that one thing, you're going to be able to do it better than most other people and have a much higher likelihood of succeeding at it than if because right off the bat, if you're doing three different things, then you're naturally going to end up putting only a third of your effort into each thing. Well, now it's only a third of everything that you could be doing. Pick one thing, focus on it, do nothing else. And that's how you can go, exponentially farther.
Good one to end on. Good piece of advice. Thank you so much, Zander, for coming in or being where you are and spending the time on the answering my questions and sharing your experience. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks for your time, Rich. Thanks for having me on.